Okay, so now it is May 3rd, right? The next day. 2021. Yeah. So, first thing, the little bird didn't make it. I'm telling you, it was a toss-up, putting it up by a tree with one feather. Which, in this situation, people, you know, they do say, just put it back out in the environment and let nature take its course. Because now I'm feeling like, oh, gee, maybe I should have just put it in a tree. Maybe it would have caught bugs, eaten bugs off the tree. Maybe it would have stayed up high, right? Maybe it would have just got up there and stayed up there and ate bugs off the tree, right? And would never have came down until it grew back its feathers. I don't know. Or whether it would have, you know, came down and flapped around and hopped and, you know, right, in the brush, wherever the tree is, in terms of there's a cat sitting there, and it eyeballs something moving, and then next thing you know, the bird is gone, right? So, I mean, what was it, a 50-50? Maybe the moral of this story is, right, I'm not going to keep this video long, I'm just giving you a little update, okay, in terms of where I'm at with things, and what I'm going to do right now, okay? So anyway, I think the moral of this story is, in terms of what I started to do after the fact of getting this injured bird, right? I think I should just finish the cage. I kind of want to modify it where I can either use it as a bird cage in a situation like that, because that bird probably would have done better taking it, and instead of putting it under a little cage in the bedroom by the freezer, which was running and making noise that, one, the bird is not familiar with, because you have to remember, little chickadees, they're, you know, their hearts go fast, and they're a nervous bird, so, you know, you can frighten them to death, really. Guys, it was awake this morning, it was running around this morning, but when I walked in, I startled it. So maybe when I startled it, people, it had a heart attack for all I know. Or maybe because the blood feather fell out, right? You know, maybe it bled to death, right? Or maybe it had a puncture wound from a cat that I didn't see, and it was bleeding internally. I mean, a number of factors. Whether it would have survived up in a tree until its tail feathers grew back, or whether it would have survived basically on the ground, flapping around and hopping and you know, just doing little flying spurts, because it couldn't fly. I mean, let's face it, right? I don't know. I just don't know. So anyway, now that I'm on the mission of making that little bird sanctuary, there's another word for it. It starts with an A. I can't think of how to pronounce it right now. Right? I can't even form it in my head. Right? I'm pretty sure it starts with an A. It's not asylum. It's something else. Anyway, because you can see it's big. And you kind of want that, right? Because, you know, then they can have a little more freedom to stretch their wings and stuff like that, right? I mean, that bird could have flew onto the cage, and because when I came in, it jumped, and it grabbed onto the cage. For all I know, maybe it broke its wing, because when I seen it and came in an hour and a half later, it was like toast. So putting it outside in a situation like that, even temporarily, like when I had that robin, it was in that little cage, right? And the parents were coming, and then I let it go next door, and then, you know, the guys started mowing their grass, and they didn't know, right? And I let them know, and so they kept an eye open for the little bird. Next thing you know, they're taking pictures of the little bird, you know, all so happy that the little bird is alive, and it's up in the, you know, fig tree, and then along comes some neighborhood black cat, right? Dusty, it was a dusty black cat, right? You know, and, you know, he's scoping out because I put it in the high foliage, right? Hoping that the parents, well, they did. They went and they fed it. I have it on video. But too many cats, right? There's just too many cats. So I don't even know if that little bird made it, because again, I opened my door and that dusty cat just beelined, and the bird beelined and went all the way around and in the back, and I'm chasing. The bird went to the back, which kind of tells you that the cat got that little robin. So you can't win for losing in a situation like this. It's a hit and miss. But, you know, if it happens again, right, and that bird cage outside is available, you just put it in the cage and it's a little more open and, you know, not so stressful. And if it's a baby bird, the parents will come and then you try and figure out how to release it without the cats getting a hold of it. If it's an injured bird that, you know, if you release it, you know the cats are going to get it, right? You might as well just give it a chance. Or with this situation, I don't know, right? If I would have put it in that cage and left it alone and just gave it its basic water and food and don't disturb it in terms of startling it, and it had areas where it could, like branches and little pine needles, where it could actually hide and gain comfort with the other birds around it, and if other birds fly to the cage, then that's an indication, right, that you might want to try and release it, because it's going to have its family looking after it when it's out and about, versus just letting it go where you don't know where to let it go, right? You know what I mean? So making the cage is on the right track. That's what I'm trying to say. For the loss, you know, it got me in that motion where if it happens again next time, I'll have a better place to put the bird. And being that, you know, I don't come across too many birds, and, you know, we're still going to get that rabbit. What happened with the rabbit is the person that was going to give us the rabbit, right, she took in somebody else's rabbit, and then it brought in a virus to all her rabbits. So then she quarantined the one that she was going to give to us because she didn't want our rabbit to get the virus, right? But that rabbit that she quarantined, along with many other rabbits that she had, all died, right? But I guess she still has rabbits, so, you know, we're on a waiting list for another rabbit at a later date. Now, I always knew I was supposed to make a little cage. I have to make a small cage that I can put into the main rabbit hutch, where Pumpkin can sniff through the screen to the rabbit on the inside, right? So that they can get to know each other, and then release the little rabbit into the cage with Pumpkin, and hopefully they won't fight. And then Pumpkin won't be alone, and they'll have each other for body heat over the winter, which makes me feel better, although it's not necessary. As long as you've got enough hay in their nesting box there, you know, the Pumpkin's been out there for 2 years now, so, you know, if and when that rabbit ever comes, okay, I can always use that cage that I'm building now if I improvise somehow, some way. In other words, I'm going to make a bird cage / rabbit hutch, so that when the rabbit comes, maybe I'll just put the rabbit in its own cage, unless of course there's a bird in there, right, out in the back for a month or two, just to get it to see, right, make sure, right, it's fine. And then, you know, bring Pumpkin to the cage, and they can sniff through the cage after a while, and then, you know, maybe introduce the rabbit from that cage into the main cage. Like, it's not a cage, it's a rabbit hutch, right, into the main rabbit hutch. So I'm going to keep working on the bird sanctuary, okay, because if I ever use it as a rabbit hutch, okay, it would only be for what I just said, or maybe I might get a rabbit from the hutch, bring it to the back, put it in that, I guess you could say, / rabbit hutch, right, for a little while, so, you know, Alea Maine, Andre, you know, a little closer, right, I don't know, okay, or if and when I ever get chickens, if I ever do, I might, people, you never know what will happen by the end of the year, right? If that's the last thing that I have to work on and everything else is done, oh boy, it wouldn't take long to get chickens. But we seen Matilda. I'm pretty sure that's Matilda, because Matilda is she's not afraid of me, and she tries to get my attention, and she lets me know that she wants meat, quote unquote. She likes liver, hot dogs, chicken, right? You know, every now and then when she's nursing, right? When she was around, you know, I'd give her that, right? So what she did is she learned how to touch my foot. She comes and she, you know, it kind of spooks me because she's sketchy, right? You know, she's good, but she's sketchy. But she likes to touch my foot, right? In other words, I want meat. I don't want cat food. I want meat. That's what she's telling me, right? I know she is. So, you know, I dealt with that raccoon yesterday, and yeah, it could very well be Matilda, because you can't really tell, right? You'd have to, like, have a collar on them or tag them or something, right? I'm going to spray paint them with something so you can tell, but just with her demure, the way she laid down, right? Matilda did that when she had her babies last year in the hen house. So I'm hoping that whatever raccoon is having their babies this year on this property have it in the hen house, because that's the last project on the list in terms of doing what I want to do in the yard. I don't think they're in the X Club, because I was just in there today, and I'm going to do some seeds today, okay? My landlady, did you get your seeds? Have you started your plant? She likes that, right? I told her no. I've been doing court, and I started a few seeds. I started some, but not a lot, right? I start late, and right now we're going through a really, really cold snap. So, right? So today, instead of rushing around with that bird sanctuary / rabbit hutch, right, I'm going to mull it over a little bit, think about it. I will probably put it in that corner, so I have to start picking away in there. I got bricks and wood, and there's old Charlie. I've got bins with wood for burning, that kind of stuff in case of an emergency, right? But it, you know, I'm going to just go through it all and see what's going on in there, and then I'll put that little hutch, probably after it's done. My son and I, we can lift it, and then we'll just slide it in there, and it will look really nice. And like I said, I could bring Pumpkin to the back for the day if I wanted to. Put him in the hut, put her in the hutch, you know, and Alea May's running around, Andre's running around, right? You know what I'm saying? So even if there's no bird in there, or if I ever get chickens, you know, I could do that with a chicken versus having the chicken running around, right? Just to be interactive with the animals on the property, right? Where they're not running away, right? You know? It depends on the chicken's temperament, right? Some chickens, like, you know, they're more friendly. Other ones are like, they're more skittish. So what I'm trying to say is I can either use it for bird rescue, I can either use it for introducing a new rabbit onto the property so that Pumpkin gets a friend and has someone to keep her warm in the winter, or whether I use it to put the rabbit that I already have in the back just to socialize with the family, or whether I use it to put the chicken in there to socialize with the family if and when I ever get a chicken. I think, thank you, I think it's just a good idea to stick with the plan, okay? And then in this situation, if it would have been done, I would have just taken that bird, basically, and put it into that environment, which would have been a much more better, conducive environment, where you could probably gauge whether it's, you know, to release the bird or to keep the bird, right? You know, I mean, you just don't find an injured bird, grab it, and then go run off to a tree in a bush or wherever, in some grass, and just release it. You want to assess it first, right? You would think. Like, it really disturbs me that we went through all that with that little baby robin, and that freaking dusty cat got it. I'm pretty sure it got it. Like, how would you prevent a situation like that? I mean, the birds, they're not capable of fending off 10 cats. Okay? Never mind one that's determined to catch the bird. Anyway, I can't get upset over a bird. I tried. And now we're on a better path with what we know what we're going to do at that corner. And, you know, building a little safety net if it should happen again. Because I'll more than likely be here for a little while, and you just never know, right? One time I found a crow, right? I put it in Mr. Lace's cat house, but the problem with that was, for whatever reason, it was really, really dirty and grimy, and it, you know, like, it'd been in garbage, and it was, like, so stressed out, and so I gave it a bath. I think I should have just left it in Mr. Lace's pen and not disturb it for a few days. Instead, I tried to clean it up, and maybe that's where I stressed it out too much, and that one died too. So, but it couldn't fly, nothing, right? So, there was nothing around it, nobody, no other birds. It was out in the fucking field. It was like on the way to the store. It was by itself. Nobody was around. Nobody followed me. I remember one time I was driving with Uncle John back in the day when I had my car on the road, and somebody had hit a seagull. I'm telling you, people. It was here. Was it here? I can't remember exactly. No, yeah, I think it was here. Yeah, when I first moved in, pretty much. And so anyway, I wanted its wings because I was working on non-profit stuff, right? You know, in terms of going out and doing things with kids and, you know, introducing them to different things, right? And a span of wings, right? I have them. I still have them in the house. I have them on video. When I first started doing videos, I was standing right there, and right? So anyway, I stopped. I said, "Oh, John, look, there's a seagull on the road, you know, it's being run over, right? Because it got hit, right?" I said, "Let me stop the car and get out and get this seagull, because, you know, that's like real life with the kids. I can show them. Just like if you come with hide. I have animal hide. Children like to wear animal hide over their shoulder. I have video doing little, you know, projects with them, and they feel like kings and queens, right? So it was just another, or, you know, you have a little skull of, you know, just little natural, organic substances within our environment that come from, you know, different parts of the world. In this case, it just happened to be seagull wings. That was one of the reasons why I stopped. And so when I got out, I grabbed the bird, right? I put it in my trunk, started driving home, and I'm telling you, this thing was dead, okay? I'm telling you, people, the whole freaking seagull flock followed me home. And they circled above my house for like a week. Okay, it was a long time as I was dehydrating these wings. Okay. It could have been at Manpreet's house before we moved into this one. Okay. But either or, those seagulls, they wouldn't go away. Right? They just kept circling, squawking for their friend, and I felt so bad, right, because the bird was dead, and there was nothing I could do to console their sorrow in terms of they wanted their friend to join back with the flock, and they weren't leaving until the friend got up and flew up into the sky to be with them. They didn't realize that the bird was dead. They could sense the bird, they can smell the bird, they followed the bird from the road in my car to my house, but they just didn't clue in that the bird was dead. Eventually, they all left. And so, like, birds are, like, really connected that way. And that's why, like, if you put it outside, if that little bird had, let's say, if it was parents, which even my son thinks it wasn't a small bird. It wasn't, you know, right? It didn't look like a baby, right? But if it had parents like that robin, the parents are going to come. And then, of course, if the parents are there, for sure, you want to release the bird to the parents. It's hard to do that in an environment where you've got anywhere from 5 to 10 cats roaming, you know, the neighborhood, looking specifically for birds. That's what they do. And they're so proud of themselves when they catch them. So I'm going to be doubling up on the bells for a couple of months. because baby bird season's coming in on my cats, right? We try and lock them up in the bathroom if we know that there's baby birds around. If we know. Just so, because they fall out of the nest. And then they're like little ground, like robins, right? They run on the ground. They can't, right? They can't get back up into the tree. That's why the parents fly around and come down and feed them and, you know, and try and ward off predators and stuff like that. But if there's not enough meadow, right? Like a meadow, like, you know, right? Then it's so dangerous for them. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with the rabbit hutch slash bird sanctuary slash maybe chicken holding for a day. It depends on how I make it, right? Because I'm going to build in a little box for a rabbit. That if I have a bird, I can always just close off the box where it can't go inside the box, but it can hop around and do whatever it wants. I don't know. Anyway, so the other part I just want to say before I start my day, because I'm going to work on seeds, right? Because, you know, the clock is ticking. And I'm just going to, you know, I've been waiting for some potting soil, but so I'm just going to grab up some dirt, whatever, from the yard. I'm going to try and plant a few more, right? And get them started so that hopefully in the next 3 weeks or so, right? 3-4 weeks, the weather would have broken because it's really, really cold right now. And I'll have something to put in the ground. They won't be as robust as if I started them in a nice warm greenhouse and, you know, they're big and lush. But they produce. And then, of course, I've got next door a little bit, right? So, you know how much time I have to go next door. I'm just going to go sometime in the next week and just throw it. I got potatoes. I'm just going to pop a whole bunch of potatoes in. And something is better than nothing in this case, right? And then if I can get some beans started, where in 3-4 weeks from now I have beans, it would be really nice if I could run like pole beans just all the way down, right? Like 3 rows. You just, like the old days. I don't know. I don't have time to order dirt. I don't have the money to order, like, you know, to enrich the dirt over there or even on my side. I wanted to, but so I just work with what I have. But that would be nice if we could have some pole beans in there, because they'd be easy enough to plant once they're started. And yeah. So the other thing, I did do this just this morning. I'm kind of tired, but whatever. Trying to stay positive. So this is another one of Fraser Health Authority's, right? This one was November 23rd. I guess this is documents or something. Exhibit A, Exhibit E. So, I still haven't found CIBC's one, but then I haven't really looked. So anyway, just to give you an idea of how much I wrote for my initial notice of civil claim with Uncle John with Fraser Health Authority. Now, this is just single pages, okay? And they can't say, people, that I was being prolific and blah, 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 right? Because other lawyers, you know, depending on what they're doing, they write like 128-page notice of civil claim, okay? Or more. I don't know why 128 came on top of my head, but you know, like their notices of civil claim is not just 5 paragraphs, okay? I mean, like, That is completely, I don't want to say asinine, but how could you possibly explain in five sentences, fuck the paragraphs, right? You know, right? 5 pages. How could you possibly fully explain what happened to you, da-dee-dee-da-da, in terms of like writing a notice of civil claim and the ramifications around it or whatever? Okay, not that I know how to write one, because I don't. I just know that other lawyers write more than 5 pages. So you would think I should be allowed to write more than 5 pages. But they didn't like it. They mocked me instead. Right? Because they want you to doubt yourself. They want you to feel bad about yourself. Right? Just the whole 9 yards. Now, the mistake that I made with this one, and I don't. I call it a mistake only because the court sees it as a mistake. Where for me, it wasn't a mistake. Because it literally documents to a fair degree as to how Uncle John was medically kidnapped. Isn't that what statement of facts is supposed to be about? How something happened, right? The discovery in terms of like your documents is to prove how it happened in terms of what you wrote in your notice of claim. That's how I interpreted writing a notice of civil claim. They wanted the facts of what happened and how it happened, right? So I tried to do that to my best ability, but only I ran out a little bit of time. You know, I ran out of time and I didn't get a chance to proofread it, okay? And because I was copying and pasting between CIBC Bank and Fraser Health Authority, some things, right? What it did is it doubled up in terms of what I was trying to say in a few areas, okay? So in other words, all it needed, people, was to be proofread and adjusted. In my opinion, I have no regrets doing what I did, because for them to ignore it in terms of what those individuals were doing at the time is negligent. It's negligent. But you see, they based their dismissal on that duty of care through the Criminal Code of Canada, okay, and the Health Act. But somehow they perversed it, right? They contaminated it with, I don't know if it's provincial legislation, right? They didn't. Where did the duty of care come from? Did it come from the Criminal Code of Canada? From the Health Act of Canada? Or from some provincial legislation or act or mandate of the province of British Columbia, Canada? Where did that duty of care supposedly come from? Because that was their reason to dismiss it. Because they felt that I didn't have a right to advocate on John's behalf. And that's why they were so adamant to keep him hidden away and for us to not talk to him. And they refused to let him speak to Paul, the lawyer, as Paul called on several occasions to talk to John, because John is on video telling me to go get Paul. The court ignored that because they took the power of attorney and an enduring power of attorney, and they kept flipping the fucking script between the two of them because they didn't really know at the time until the bank got involved, right, as to what was on John's account. So they had to be either confused or not confused, confused or not confused, because each power of attorney represents, right, different powers, okay? So they were juggling with the two different powers of attorney as they were gathering up the paperwork through fraud. Okay? It's written down in there, people. Okay? I even give them specific information. Now, maybe I didn't have to, or I shouldn't have given them the specific information, because that specific information comes through the document list. But how would they know if I listed on a document list what it's about unless I first give them an introduction as to what the document is? Okay? So, I'm not going to get all bent out of shape, okay, over this right now. You get my point. So I have no regrets. If I don't know how I can possibly... There's 100 and... There's 114 pages. Looks like altogether for Uncle John's lawsuit, I need to somehow get this onto a PDF file and upload it online so that people can read it. Because right now, the court has basically buried it and said that it's insignificant, as to which it is not. If other lawyers can come in with 100 and... What did I say? 14 pages in their notice of claim or more, then why can't I? Right? Notice of civil claims don't come in under 5 pages. And if they do, well, great. Okay? But in my mind, when I wrote this, I didn't feel to be restricted to 5 pages. Especially when you're dealing with Criminal Code of Canada, you know, rules, regulations, acts, mandates, that kind of stuff. As to which, I actually take the time to cite the section, and then, depending on what it is, write out. See, that's what filled up the pages. I wrote out the section that I was citing so that you didn't have to stop and break your concentration and then go look in the Criminal Code of Canada as to what section I was referencing. Right? So when I did my amendment with the statement of facts, that's where I took out all that stuff and then just added in the section as to whatever it was and then what parts of that section. I didn't go into typing out exactly what it is that section relates to, so that you can't ignore the allegation because your train of concentration got broken when you went to go look it up at that, you know, in that particular actor. Like, I'll do a video on this one day. I'll read and you'll see what I'm saying. Okay? So I did the amendment. You can see I crossed out the lines. Right? I did it the way I was supposed to do it. I tried, people. I tried. Okay? You can see I did it every way they wanted me to do it. Right? Because there's a certain way of doing it. It's like being an accountant. Right? You don't draw your line through the numbers. You just go through the numbers and you write the number on top. I did that. I just didn't do the legal basis and relief sought because, you know, that's the issue, I guess, in my mind, was the statement of facts in terms of, let's deal with this first before we talk about case law that has nothing to do with this or Uncle John. And, you know, we don't need to talk about what we want in terms of relief sought until we actually deal with this. So I just amended this because that's what was important. And they ignored it and used the fact that I didn't draw a bunch of lines through legal bases and relief sought and rewrite it or however to their liking, to their satisfaction, to which it wouldn't have made a difference anyway because they were hell-bent on throwing it out of court anyway, people. So, one day, I just got to figure out how to turn this into a PDF. The same thing with CIBC Bank. That will be posted online too. In terms of, for educational purposes. Right? For those that are wanting to stand up for their families and themselves. And just don't know how. Okay? And this just kind of gives you a little guidance. I'm not a lawyer, right? We know that. Okay? But that's that. And then, the last thing I want to say before I start my day here, because I did sort out that stuff, right? To some degree. What are we doing? So, this is the appeal. Okay? Now, I am going tomorrow. And I'm just going to file for a trial date. That's what I'm going to do because I did put in a waiver of fees. My income at the time when I did the waiver of fees was $687 on welfare. And then I got $800 for Andre from the family court whatever thing that we arranged in terms of how he gets support, right? Which I did speak to somebody to ask them how I can remove myself from that system because my lawyer at the time when I was dealing with Amari just told me to tell them that I just don't want to be on that anymore and I would rather I'm on my just personal file, and she was supposed to get back to me but she never did, right? It's a 2-year contract that's renewed every 2 years based on what the judge ordered at the time in terms of I get full guardianship, right, blah, blah, blah. And, but it fell under this section, under the Family Law Act, which pushed me into this, and I had to choose, and so I chose that, and with that choice, in terms of agree to get Andre back, that's how they're in the mix, right? So, that's the one thing I noticed about this whole situation with the governments, more than one, handing out all this money to everybody, right, in terms of, you know, what's been going on, right? Foster care parents and grandparents who have their children in our care, no, there was no top-offs, right? Maybe one for $100, okay? In terms of what the government pays to people like that, right? Versus, you know, being hooked up with family allowance through the federal government. We're hooked up with family allowance through the provincial government, through their financial program that they have for children that are either foster care kids, right? Or, I guess, kids in the custody of their grandparents, but at the time agreed to that program. So, okay. But my initial social assistance welfare check, when I put in my application to waiver fees to go to trial, which was in July of something, I think. Right? I'm not sure. I just sorted it out. I just took a boot, right? Fast. My income at the time was $687. I'm going to write everything down, people. So, in the meantime, this is what I got found so far. Because I got other papers kind of kicking around too, right? Just going to gather them all up. See, it's easier for me to do it this way, people. Right? It just is. In terms of, there's so much of it, it's hard to... Okay. So, now, the appeal, they had me going on the 7 pages, right? Take those 20 pages, bring them down to 7 pages, then it came down to 3 pages, right? I even got critiqued for having 3.5 pages. I was told, I was reminded that it wasn't 3.5 pages, that it had to be 3 pages, right? I mean, anything to make you feel bad, right? On January 4th, okay, I was at the appeals, trying to do the appeal, but I couldn't set appeal date unless I wanted to pay the $200 for the appeal. Filing fee. That's when I, okay, I know what happened. I remember now. When I went to, file Uncle John's lawsuit with the girls, my girls were with me. And when I do stuff like this, I just see ShaMay everywhere I am, right? And my heart just, you know, okay. So anyway, at the time, 114 pages. Their registry court, okay, you go to Justice Access to, you know, they give you a little bit of advice. You can use their computers to type everything into their forms, and they'll let you print it out. Okay? So, okay, I get there with the girls, right? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. All right, blah, 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 blah. So I was going to do a waiver of fees, right? I was going to do a waiver of fees. And filled out all the paperwork, got everything ready, right? And then, but when it came time to put in the statement of facts, because there was so many pages, the court computer couldn't take the file, so then I had to go upstairs and try and adjust the file, but their computer upstairs wouldn't take my flash drive, people. Okay? So in other words, I needed to copy and paste the first 5 pages of my notice of claim in order to submit it in between the papers, because it wouldn't print out through their computer downstairs. And then when I went upstairs with the flash drive to just try and copy and paste 5 pages, print them out, go downstairs, put them in, right? Their computer wouldn't read my flash drive. So then it was like, oh my God, I started crying, blah, 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 right? But I had money on me, people, okay? And that's when I just paid for it, because I was already on the 17th. I couldn't go home and do whatever and then go back. So I have the actual paperwork filled out to go in front of a master's to try and waiver the fees. Okay? I won't know for sure until I write everything fucking down what the hell happened. Okay? In terms of how it correlates with this paperwork. I got a feather. Hold on a minute.
Is it okay if I can have some cereal fast?
Yeah, okay. Alright, so their system wouldn't take, okay, I remember all that, got frustrated, started freaking crying, what's new, right? And then ended up just paying for it, okay, in terms of filing them. Alright? I filled out the paperwork for waiver of fees, but it never went in front of a master's, okay? I've got it all printed out, but nothing stamped, nothing signatured, nothing, right? I'm pretty sure, okay? And then somehow got into court, got that amendment, whatever, okay, blah, blah, blah. So now we're at the appeal. We're going to get it all figured out. I'm going to write it down. Because remember when I was reading that paper where it said I had until January 8th?
The whole body responds to it. But it's just that at the moment of confrontation. But I'm talking about whole of society from the...
I'm just listening to something on BitChute. There is no virus. The enslavement of mankind. G. Edward Griffin. He's having a interview with somebody here. Okay. I was on January 4th, before January 8th, wanting to do an appeal. However, I didn't have the money at that time, right, to pay the $200. So I had to put in an application to waiver fees. That's how everything got pushed back. But Andrew the Dragon, he used that to his advantage. And not only did he use that to his advantage, but he disappeared at one point from his office, went on holidays, whatever it was, right? Because they do that, you know, they're either sick or they're busy with something, a holiday or emergency. So anyway, he wasn't around. So I remember that. And I have to go through the emails because, you know, he specifically says, oh, I'm back. You know, he received this. Okay, the point is I went in on January 4th to try and file the appeal papers. Okay? But because I didn't have the $200, I didn't even expect to have to pay for it, people. Right? But I did, and I couldn't. So I'm like, okay. So I started filling out papers here to go in front of waiving the fees. That's how I got in front of that other Judge Bowman. Okay, one is Bow, B-O-D, no, B-O-W, Bow, and then Den, D-E-N, Bow Den. The other one is B-A-U-D something, okay? It's a different, I'm telling you, it's a different spelling. I don't know. Okay, we'll worry about that later. So we know one Bowden is B-O-W-D-E-N. That's one Bowden, okay? So I couldn't go in front of an appeal board. I couldn't do that until I got my fees waived. So I had to put an application to go in front of a judge to waive my fees so that I could follow through with my appeal. Then, of course, Andrew the Dragon came in, put in his wrench, and wanted to dismiss it based on the grounds of blah, 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 blah. And that judge threw me off to the cops. Okay? To which I got a letter from the court on January 8th of 2019. Okay? This was after ShaMay died. So I see that judge. When was it? In February or something, right? Whenever I went, okay? And ShaMay died in April, with CIBC Bank serving me on that day that she died, which makes me very suspicious. That was not coincidental, people. I do not believe that. I can never prove it. Outside of, there are energy weapons in my house and in my yard that seem to influence people to behave badly. And if they behave badly once, why wouldn't they do it again? It's all to do with that high frequency, right? Or whatever frequency. Okay, so anyway, well, we know what happened after ShaMay died. So, but on the day ShaMay died, okay, because, you know, when I left the court, right, the judge said, go take it to the cops. So now I'm at home trying to gather shit up for the cops, people, literally, right? They want me to take, this judge wants me to take it to the cops. Okay, I'm going to try and take it to the cops. Only I don't know what to give the cops, okay? I don't know where to start. I don't know how to give them that information, especially when they've been somewhat kind of negligent already in terms of how they dealt with what was going on with Andre, you know, what was going on with Uncle John, that kind of stuff, right? In terms of Andre, like, you know, we had to call the cops, and when Andre had issues with his private parts, and, you know, they just came back so nonchalant about it, as if, okay? You know, that's just a minor compared to what they did with Uncle John. Oh, you know, they didn't care about what happened to Uncle John, not even in the least. But it was my responsibility to take whatever happened to Uncle John and try and start all over again and get the cops involved in terms of investigating it versus getting the court involved and investigating it and doing their job to clean up criminal activity within the province of British Columbia, Canada, okay? So I'm at home, you know, trying to piece a little bit here in my brain. This is January, right? 18th, ShaMay came with me downtown, right, you know, okay, and whatnot, you know, she was typing out the documents list a little bit for me and stuff. She was getting more involved, right? The next thing you know, she's dead. All right. So that day, when those cops showed up, there was a sergeant. I have his card, but I'm actually not too sure what his name was right now in terms of what card was it, because I got a few cards, but the point is, I said, oh, you're a sergeant, you know, right, you know, we're doing with ShaMay, and I'm like, oh, you know, I was going to try and contact you guys, you know, I need to send some stuff to you guys, for you guys to investigate as to what's happening to Uncle John, blah, blah, blah. He says, oh, I'm a sergeant, you know, you can send it to me. I'm like, okay, well, that's one less thing off my brain. And, you know, as I'm dealing with ShaMay and Julian running around acting like a fucking idiot, okay? And, but then as things started to materialize and unfold, people, like, why the hell would I take it to the cops? Seriously, why? Why? Knowing what I know now and what those cops did on that day and for what reason, you can't trust them to do a proper investigation. At least not these ones out here. Does that mean every police force is corrupt? Well, let's hope not, right? But that's the thing about criminal organizations. They network out, right? But it goes down to that one cop out there with that board running around in the alley saying, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, okay, but you do realize I got a beef to pick with you guys. What's the beef? And I told him, he says, well, just remember this. The RCMP is a big police force, and not every cop is corrupt. So you have to take it for face value. But that's how I got derailed from taking it to the cops and then getting so caught up with ShaMay stuff, gave them, the court, the opportunity to write this, to which is false. And they wrote it to me on January 8th of 2019. This letter is to advise you that pursuant to Section 25(1) of the Court of Appeal Act, this matter has been placed on the inactive appeal list. Go into my videos. Is it inactive? Hardly. You will find Section 25 on the reverse side of this letter. If you can't take it to the cops, people, how does it become inactive? Right? What was that judge expecting me to do? He told me to take it to the cops. Was he expecting the cops to go to court and say, oh, well, we've done our investigation now and this is our evidence, Your Honor. as if the cops are going to import themselves into that? Or was I supposed to take the file number, go back to that judge and say, here, the cops did their investigation. It took them a fucking year, and now I'm submitting their final decision after everything that's been happening with ShaMay. Like, there is no logic in sending me to the cops and then saying I'm not involved because I don't know how to come back with what the answer is supposed to be. Okay? That's why it was written into Uncle John's lawsuit that there's a section in there under some code, can't remember, some section, somewhere, I'd have to find it. And when I find it, I'll let you hear it, where it gives the judge the right to call the investigation. And they didn't do it, people. They sent me to the cops, and then my daughter just suddenly up and died. As a cop is standing there saying, well, you can give me the information. As I quickly discovered that something was seriously wrong with what happened to ShaMay. And then it was just one big fucking cover-up after that. Right? Due to the negligence of the judge. Because he just set me up to fail, to have this letter come in a year later. Oh, well, you may apply to a judge in chambers pursuant to section 25(2) to have the matter removed from the inactive list. It wasn't inactive. Cops were supposed to be investigating it. But how could I possibly ask the cops to investigate Uncle John's stuff if they were running around sneaking, covering up shit, lying, being negligent by avoiding doing their job, you know, being insulting, right? Completely ignoring what you're saying. Just the whole 9 yards. In the alternative, if all parties consent to the removal of the matter from the inactive list, you may file Form 27 indicating the consent of counsel or the parties. The consent may also be used once. Never did anything, people. If no steps are taken, the appeal will stand dismissed. They got what they wanted by playing dirty pool throughout the whole thing. Pursuant to Section 25(5) on July 5th, 2019. What could I possibly go back and say to that judge? Well, I haven't been able to ask the cops to do their, to do an investigation like you asked me to do. Well, why, Miss Chorney? Why haven't you done what I told you what to do? Well, because I'm in a position right now where, my daughter has died under suspicious circumstances with a lot of shady stuff going on around her that the cops want to completely ignore as if they're going to help me with Uncle John. What you going to do about it, Your Honor? Are you going to let me present the evidence as to what happened to Uncle John, being that I took the time to write 114 fucking pages? To give you a heads up of what's going on with the elderly in our community. And I'm going to leave it on this note. I hope, I pray, I do, that my landlords will be okay in terms of what they've done with their decision to accept a experimental inoculation that so far, my landlady said it yesterday, she had a flu for a week and she was pretty sick. So if she got that inoculation 2 months ago or so, the Moderna, and she came down a month and 3 weeks later, or whatever it was, with a flu that knocked her out for a week. She didn't say COVID, she said flu. How did she know it was a flu? Right? I don't know. I don't know. I don't pray. I don't pry too much, right? But the point is that whatever she got in terms of inoculation didn't protect her from a flu. And she got real sick for a week to the point where she wouldn't even pick up her rent until she finally had to. Because she's been so weak and tired from it. Now, let's just hope that's the first and the last little incident that she has for a long, long time. Because trust me, she's healthy, okay? She's driving a car and, you know, she's got a big workload on her. Like, you got to give this woman credit. Like, seriously. And, you know, she at the rate she's going, she can function well for a long, long time, okay? She's got it, okay? She does the bookkeeping in terms of their, you know, whatever they do, and, you know, and she looks after her husband, and, you know, like, she's an amazing woman, okay? And she's elderly, like, 77 or something now, I think, right? I'll ask her next time I see her how old she is. And, so anyway, but I don't know where I'm going with this. Oh yes, I want to end it on this note. I told her, I said, you know, Miss Gill, I said, you do realize what I'm fighting for here, right? In terms of how I fight, why I fight for Uncle John, and how what I'm doing now is so important in terms of what is happening today to a lot of elderly people in our community, all right? She goes, and I'm like, you know, because, you know, I'm sure you know somebody in your Punjabi community. I didn't have to say Punjabi, but she knows, right? Right? I'm sure somebody in you know somebody in your community who can't see their loved ones. And she, I said, that's exactly what I've been fighting for, people. That's what they did with Uncle John. And now they're doing it to tens of thousands across the freaking, well, hundreds of thousands, right? Millions across the freaking country and continent. If something happens to my landlord and she can't see him, and he dies, and she can't even have a decent burial for him, it's going to be devastating for her, people. And, you know, it hasn't happened to them, so when something doesn't happen to you, it doesn't affect you like it would for somebody that has already had it happen to them. What am I trying to say? That's what I told her. I said, look, if something happens to you, I will fight for you just as hard as I fight for Uncle John. So for them to sit up there and say, I didn't abandon anything, people. I think that was the point. I did not abandon anything. I was set up to fail. Just like I went in on the 4th, and I didn't have the money, and they put it in for go in front of a master's, gave Andrew the opportunity to come in with his case law, throw around his own criminal code of Canada, right, in terms of duty of care, right, ignoring anything that I wrote or could produce as evidence to back up what I wrote, just so that he could protect, what, the duty of care for when I went in there and became their victim? So I hope my landlady doesn't suffer in terms of what's going on in the world right now. There's a lot of opinions, not even going to get into it right now. So I just wanted to do this little update, which is already too long. And I'm just going to go now and work on seeds. Bring the kids outside for a bit. Right? I don't have to rush with this cage. So I can plan it a little better now. Right? Organize my wood. Right? Got to get the lawnmower out soon, next week. Tomorrow, I'm just going to go straight to the court registry? No, to the trial registry. I'm going to go straight to the trial registry, and I'm just going to file for a trial, which they're going to try and prevent from happening by coming in and saying, I'm frivolous, this has no warrant, right? Like in terms of, validity, right? Because I'm rambling. And I don't know if they're bringing me in front of a judge. Well, it's a judge. But are they going to do it like in another little mini trial? Or are they going to do it in a case conference? I don't know how they could possibly throw out a trial date in a case conference if the one that wants the trial wants to keep the date. Okay? It's like they have to turn it into a little mini trial again in order to be able to dismiss it. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't been through these experiences. I don't know what to expect when I get there. Okay? Until it happens. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to file for a trial, and then I'm going to wait and see what they're going to hand me with, and then I'll show up with that, for that, and call them on it, people. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to call them on it, right? In terms of, you guys are being negligent, right? You guys are being purposely discriminatory against an injured family.